I believe that this has literally been the hardest life of my life. And what I mean by the hardest life of my life, I mean literally trying to get set up, okay? Because it is now 7:11. 7:11. My labs are scheduled for 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is now 7:11. Mm-hmm. So that means that not only am I late, but I am extremely late. But I'm here. Listen, hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Hood Parenting Live. Welcome to the neighborhood if this is your first time here, and if you are returning, then welcome back home. I am your host, Yashika Foster. I like to call myself fairy godmother. So you can refer to me as fairy godmother, okay? And I tell people I can't be anybody's auntie because I'm still somebody's mama, okay? Y'all know I still got a 12-year-old here at the house, so I can't be an auntie yet. Let me fix my lipstick. What side is this on? Listen, y'all, this has been one of those type of days where you say, okay, I know that the devil is always going to try everything. And so typically on Hood Parenting Live, I go live right there in front of my sign so that I can, show the sign so it won't be so blurry looking and all the things, right? That's what I typically do on a Sunday. And so that's at 6 p.m. if I'm lucky. If I'm lucky, it's at 6 p.m. Now, because God got a sense of humor and the devil is always at play. See this list don't even want to do right. I look up and usually I don't get going until a few minutes later. Okay, because at the last minute, something happens. Well, today I decided when I tried to go live at 6 p.m., it didn't happen. I continued doing, I fought with it for a few minutes. I said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to set it up for 7. hmm So when I set it up for 7, sure enough, I was over there. I had my little station set up. I had everything set up over there. Okay. The chair that you see sticking out over here was over there in the corner, the whole 9 yards. And lo and behold, 7 o'clock came and nothing. Everything was didn't do what it needed to do. It said I couldn't do it. Don't know what happened. At that point, I said, you know what? Let me just come sit at my desk. Let me just sit at my computer, my desktop. Forget about the iPad, forget about the phone, forget about all the other gadgets, and let me just use my good old computer, my Apple desktop computer, and we're gonna see what happens. And so far so good. And again, hello, welcome. Listen, is it snowing where y'all at? Here in Virginia, this is a Sunday. Everything is closed down to included church. Church was closed down as well. Okay. They closed church. We had to do church online at 10 o'clock. And so I was there, which was fine by me because I was able to fold some clothes up. I was able to get some Sunday things done earlier than usual. Okay. So I was here for it. Listen, today, you guys, I have a show for y'all that I think you're going to like. Okay. I really think you're going to like this show because when I tell you that I have had some experience, some amazing experiences these last couple of weeks, I have literally had some amazing experiences. And so I want to share those experiences with you all. But before I get there, I want to talk about Carl Jung. All right. And so if any of y'all are familiar with Carl Jung, he has what they call, it's spelled Jung. His name is pronounced Jung, but it's spelled like Jung, Jung. So he has a Jungian effect, right? He has the Jungian prospects. And what he pretty much is if you know anything about him, he was an early psychologist for the 1900s. He worked really well with Sigmund Freud until they no longer aligned. Sigmund Freud believed one thing. He believed that the ego, the id, and all that, and the superego, whereas that Jung believed that you develop into who you are, right? You don't just be the person that you are. You actually develop into who you are because of circumstances, because of life, because you're always on this path of understanding and healing and things like that, right? And so he believes that we become who we're going to be. It's like it's in us, and so you slowly but surely shapes that person that you're meant to be. And so his concept and Flory's concept didn't align. And so eventually just really broke ways. But for me, or parted ways, but for me, I have always been a fan of Carl Jung as well as Maslow, right? I've been a fan of those, and that's who I more or less study after is Carl Jung and Maslow. And so anything that I do will fall up in with the Jungian effect, or it will fall up in with Maslow's theory of self-actualization and the hierarchy of needs, right? And so for me, I study from a place of self-actualization, which is Maslow, and it ties really well with Carl Jung, right? And so for clarity, Carl Jung is just pretty much that person that he believes that there's let me see, Carl Jung said, and I'm quoting, he said that we're not here to heal, we're here to become whole. And that becoming happens in stages, especially during moments of transitioning. And so he believed that as you become who you're supposed to be, it's not something that you do all at once. It's something that you do because of stages. You do it as you learn, as you grow, as you experience, right? Because with age comes experience. Even if you don't really live in a world, there's just some things that age just brings. Age brings a certain level of understanding, a certain level of wisdom. And so Carl Jung just believes that you grow it. Your growth isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about becoming whole. So that's what he believes. And so for today, I wanted to talk about Carl Jung's concept of individualization or individuation, right? Individuation, which is the process of becoming who you actually are, not from learning to survive. And when I think about that, that is one of those statements that you say, well, wait a minute, okay, if I'm not working from a place of survival, because I feel in my mind, that's how my life has always been, where I've worked from a place of survival. And so if I'm not working from a place of survival, then what place am I working from? Right. And so it made me just kind of think about that. Kind of, and I'm sorry, I'm ruffling papers around, but it just made me kind of think about that whole why is it that we have to work from a place of survival? And I know the answer, especially, and here's the thing, the answer is dependent on the individual because everyone's circumstances will definitely be different. For me, I believe that safety was one of my primary um, things in my childhood that shaped me. And what I mean by safety, I mean by the lack of, right? Because see, I came from that household that was, my mother, don't get it twisted, my mother was the bomb.com. Make no mistake about it. She was everything and more. But that did not negate the fact that we were a single parent home that was in the hood that was living below poverty level because we were on welfare. And it was just that simple. Mom bought what was needed, not what we wanted. Every now and then we might got something like that, but you best believe sacrifices was made in other areas if we got the things that we wanted at any given time. And so for me, it's one of those things where when you look at it from that perspective, safety was always an issue for me. And so, because safety was an issue for me, I always fought to make sure that I found a way to protect myself. And so, because I act from that place, a lot of times I would come off very, very aggressive or very, very in your face because I wanted to make sure that a person didn't try me, for lack of a better word. Okay. Because I knew that I didn't have a lot of reach. In other words, it was my mom, my brother, and I. So my mother, she was always a smaller woman, and my brother was much younger than me. And so in my mind, I had to protect myself because I didn't have anybody else, right? Although my brother was my protector. But for many years, he was a lot smaller than me. And so because he was smaller than me or whatever, I didn't feel in my mind that he could protect me because he was a younger boy. He was smaller. And so there wasn't a lot that he can do, but trust me, he tried. He definitely tried. And so for me, that was the thing that made me think about, okay, what was that for me? And so survival was, or safety was the thing for me. And so because that was something that I didn't really experience a lot of as an adult, it was one of those things where how do I not have to show up in this armor? And I believe that being in the military was something that kind of helped me to really like, I was able to just really lean into that. In other words, because I was a service member, we have this certain concept about military service members. We say they're tough, they're strong, they're all the things because we are. And so it was easy for me to fall into that role of being a soldier because that was the life that I had lived prior to joining the military. In other words, making sure that I'm good, making sure that, I can defend myself, making sure that I could protect myself, that I didn't really learn how to balance what I thought was my who I wanted to be and who I had to be. And so a lot of times I didn't know as a young woman that who I wanted to be didn't mean that I had to put down who I had to be because they both can easily walk at the same time. Like I'm that girl that'll tell everybody that I will cry and fight at the same time. I will cry and fight at the same time. I will hug you and cuss you out all at the same time. It's just that simple. I will give you a hug and cuss you out all at the same time. Right? It's just that simple. Okay? Because I know that it's not extreme. In other words, it's not all or nothing in this life. You know what I mean? You can't just be one way and just be that way because then you'll miss so many other things on here. You can't just be these ways because you'll dismiss. So you have to be a little bit of everything. And so what I started to develop and what I started to learn, because even when I got married at 18, in my mind, part of me getting married was so that I could have the protection that I needed because I never felt protected. But then I realized after a while that who was I needing him to protect me from? Because no one else was affecting me the way that they were, either of my husbands, in terms of hurt and pain, right? Whether it was physical, mentally, emotionally, right? No one else was hurting me. So when it came to pain or hurt, who was they protecting me from? And so when I came about those relationships, I had to say, okay, Ashika, how do you find this protection for yourself? How do you find this safety for yourself? And what I recognize is that it's always been in me. I've always been the person who took care of myself. And so it was really, really easy for me to lean into that what Jung says about growth doesn't start when you figure it out. It literally starts when the person you used to be, stops trying. You know what I'm saying? In other words, the person you used to be, it doesn't work anymore. In other words, me being just this way or that way no longer works. Right? Those things no longer work. In order for me to not live in my life in such a routine and such a identity where I had to be this, where I had to be that way. I had to say, you know what? I can't move through life on autopilot, just being what the world expects me to be. Because one thing I know about this life, and of course, this is something that Buddha says, and I think Carl Jung says this as well. If you ask the world who you are, they will tell you. If you ask the world who you are, they will tell you. That's why you have to know who you are. Because if not, they'll tell you who you are, and it may not be somebody you want to be. Okay. And so that's why you have to really say, okay, who am I or who am I becoming? And so we don't know this in the beginning. Those are things that we go through in life that helps us to figure it out. And so as I went through my earlier adulthoods, as I went through my young 20s, my 30s, right? It was that time in my life where I was like, okay, because remember, we're still trying to get to that place of comfortability, that place of I don't have to, worry about this. And again, that goes back to Maslow, right? Hierarchy of needs. In order for me to be the best person I can be, I have to make sure that my safety, right? My safety needs are where they need to be. I have to make sure that my psychological needs, right? My shelter, my home, my food, my water, like things like that, right? And then my safety. And if those things aren't where they need to be, then I can't be the person that I'm becoming. So I can't be that person. It's like I have to get to that person because that person deserves to have all of their needs taken care of, right? Because you can't be out here living your best life and being all in love, and then you say, okay, but we have no money, because eventually something is going to run into something. Eventually, the tide will turn and the barrel will break. It's just that simple. Now, because here's the thing, life don't go on forever. So even if you don't necessarily see the pain of it, right? And and you're living that way. In other words, you want your life to be where all of your needs are taken care of because you are promised abundance. Abundance is yours. It is your birthright. Abundance is your birthright. And so when we think about Carl Jung and what he says about who you are and who are you becoming, we have to understand that when that no longer fits, your mind feels busy. Your soul is actually reorganizing. In other words, when you're not settled with the person that you know you want to be, or the person that you desire to be, or the person that you know you should be, it's like your soul don't align. It's like something doesn't align. It's like you feel like something is off. It's like you're looking at it, and I'm telling you this from a 52-year-old perspective. I'm not this 30 or 40-year-old person. I'm telling you this as a woman who is successful. I have retired from the military at the age of 43 after serving 25 years. If this is your first time here, I have 3 degrees. I have licensures in areas where I can go and work with my hands if I need to. I have a lot of things that I've accomplished. There are still things in this life that I feel that I'm supposed to do. And because of those things, those are the things that keep me going. Those are the things that says, hey, I can't, although life looks good over here, right? If I'm okay with just the basics, but I know that there's more. I know that I deserve more. I know that I'm here to give more, right? I'm not here to just say, okay, now that I'm retired, let me just raise my daughter and just live life and that's it. No, there's things in me that says, Yashika, you still have work to do. You still have work to do. And so that's that part of where Carl Jung says you are becoming. And so all the things that I did prior to the military, the degrees, the marriages, the children's, the disappointments, the letdowns, the successes, the lessons learned, the failures, the wins, like all the things that I learned thus far for 52 years and 10 months has gotten me to this point of I am more of who I know I'm supposed to be than who I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Because why? It feels natural. I don't have to force it. It's almost as if, how do I explain it? I've never been in a place in my life where everything just feels like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it because I already know what's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'll give you a story. Just how it is. The other day I had to, and it's just how my life is set up. How I know that when you are aligned and you are working and you're walking in the things that you're supposed to do, things just happen. And so when you are becoming that person and you are aligned, you don't have to worry, you don't have to struggle, you don't have to fight, you don't have to stress, you don't have to do any of those things because things just happen. I can't explain it, but they just happen. So the other day I had to be at my ambassador job on Wednesday. First time, it was gonna be my first night. Now, prior to that, I had already made arrangements to drop my car off because one of my cars needed to get an inspection done on a state inspection. And so I had to drop it off the night before, which was that Tuesday night. But also because of me driving at night, that was also preferably the vehicle that I wanted to drive. It was the SUV or the crossover as opposed to my vehicle, my car. And so, the car is a big car and everything, and but the SAV is a little bit more manageable, right? Because of it's a more all wheel. Okay, so I knew that I had to go ahead and drop that car off, but then I also was thinking that am I going to have time to pick it up? Because as a single person, I had to get an Uber to and from to drop my car off. An Uber to and from just to get a state inspection. It cost me more to get the Uber to and from than it cost for me to get the state inspection. But whatever. Okay, you gotta do what you gotta do. Well, anyway, with that being said, one of the things that was a hindrance for me was, am I going to be able to pick up the car in time? Right? Because I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pick up the car in time or the vehicle in time for me to be able to drive it. Because not only that, but I'm not going to be able to pick it up because now I got to wait on the Uber. And all I'm thinking about, I don't want to have to inconvenience myself later on because once I started getting dressed, I didn't want to have to do anything else. Well, lo and behold, at 4 o'clock, the man calls me and says, hey, well, I got your car done. However, and I said, say less. I'll be there tomorrow to pick it up. And so right away, it was just like that pathway had cleared for me. But then prior to that, there was something else that had happened where it was just like, Oh my God, it just cleared. So in other words, things just fell off of my plate. Things that were causing me to start to catastrophize because I knew that I had to do a lot of things even before I left to go to my job or go to the ambassador job. It was one of those things where I knew that I didn't want to have to, stop what I'm doing in terms of makeup and hair and all that stuff, and then go pick up my car and then come back. But I also knew that I couldn't let it sit there without, because that's the purpose of dropping it off, because they don't want to be responsible for your vehicle. And so, but the way just cleared for me. Everything just cleared for me to the way where I didn't have to worry about anything. And so for me, that's how my life been set up. In so many occasions, it was something else that happened on that same day where I was just like, well, I didn't even have to worry about that. It worked itself out. It literally worked itself out, and I mean, yes, it worked itself out. And so it's just one of those things where I feel that once we get to that point in alignment and we stop trying to control everything and force everything, I feel that things just kind of like happens, right? Now, what I do also know is that when it comes to us, we also have to remember this as parents, that our kids are also trying to figure themselves out. And although we are their parents, they're still going to be who they're going to be. Okay. And so sometimes we're trying to shape them while they're trying to shape themselves. And so we have to be mindful of that as well. I'm not saying you let them do what they want to do, but what I am saying is that we have to make sure that we understand that we have all these people in our lives that we're trying to figure out. We're trying to get to them becoming. We're trying to, along with ourselves. And so that right there is a lot for anybody. But we get to a point in our lives where we get to, like I said, what Jung calls individuation, right? Which is the process of becoming who you actually are and not who you learn to survive. Okay, let me say that again. The process of becoming who you are, not who you had to be in order to survive. And so once you are at that point, that is the point in your life where you are very comfortable in your skin. Like everything just kind of like, it's like you don't wait on applause. You don't wait on anybody to tell you who you are. You don't wait on anything. You literally are clear about your path. You literally are clear about what it is that you are supposed to do. You know that even though without clarity, you may not have the answers to like steps 4, 5, and 6. You may only have answers to steps 1, 2, and 3. But because you are at that point of individuation, where you know that you are walking in the person that you are supposed to be, you have that much faith in the process that you can say, you know what, I don't see things clearly, and I'm not very, I don't have all of the steps, and I'm not all the clarity isn't there about what I'm doing, but I know I'm supposed to just keep moving forward. That's what you know. And so that's what this is about. This is what this is about. How do we get to that point in our lives where we keep moving forward? And we get to that point where you say, you know what? I don't know what this looks like. Because that's the point. We're all trying to figure it out. We don't know who we are becoming until we get there. But I do know that when you get there, it is such a beautiful feeling. And like I said, I'm 50, so of course and I had to learn a lot of things differently. But what I do know is that this feels right for me right now. This feels like I've waited my whole life to get here. Even the things that I'm doing outside of social media, like what's going on in my personal life. Like 2025 alone, I was on a reality show. I was on a major platform podcast. Then I turned around and got a dream job going into because it was released. I did it in 2025, and then before 2025 was over, I got a dream job as an ambassador to a literally a what 8-figure company. I'm talking high 8-figure company. I did all this at 52, right? At 52 so far, I've done that. So it's one of those things that it's like, okay. And it's like, all I know is that I just been walking in what feels good for me, being where I'm supposed to be at, going where I'm supposed to go. When I'm told to move, I move, even when I don't know why. That's all I know. I move even when I don't know why. Now, I can honestly tell you that I wasn't like this in my 40s. I wasn't. I felt like I had to control everything because I thought I was in control of everything. And I can honestly tell you that that's not some place that we get to easily. It takes time to get there. I get it. I do. I really do get it. But what I do know is that when you find that spot, that beautiful spot, that you can say, okay, this is it, right? That anchor spot, that spot you say, you know what? This isn't a breakdown. This is a build. Like I am here where I'm supposed to be at. So although it feels like resistant, but I am here. I don't know what this looks like. Even this right here, I have no idea what this looks like. I have no idea who I'm talking to, but I know that I'm supposed to talk here. That's what I do know. And so, like any video, listen, I hope that this one was something that you can take away from that. Just the whole art of becoming on that part. But before I get out of here, I want to talk to you about something else. Over these last couple of weeks, I have had the pleasure to be in the presence of a CEO. I mean, a mega powerhouse of a woman, CEO, Mrs. Sharice Jones of Sassy Jones, the CEO of Sassy Jones. And what I can tell you is that I spent about, I don't know, the last 3 weeks between 8 and 10 hours with her for different trainings and different questions and different product things and filming and things like that. And what I do know is that for me in my life, as successful as I've been, I do know that I have to do more. That's what I learned. I'm learning that. I know that I don't do enough because here's the thing. I've done a lot in my life and I worked hard to get here. But I also know that I'm not working hard enough because I'm watching this woman. I had the pleasure of having a sit down conversation with her about maybe 6 years ago before COVID, right before COVID took off. And her company at that time had reached like a mid, like a low, like about $300,000, I think is what she said that year. And so from that year to current, she has, like, when I tell you increased by, I don't even know the math on that, but I'm telling you, this woman is literally almost at 9 figures. Her company is almost worth 9 figures. And so what I'm saying to you, to go from a mid-tier 300,000 to going to almost 9 figures in a matter of like a few years is just crazy. And I am such in a beautiful place to be able to, like, when I tell you that, I remember telling someone that when they work hand in hand with a CEO, that they had the answers to the test. I was like, you got the answers to the test. Like, you working hand in hand with this person. It's ironic who the person is. It's just so crazy how life comes full circle. But I remember telling them that you got the answer to the test. Like, you're working with this person. Oh my God. Like, watch them, emulate them, like copy them, like ask questions, like get whatever you have to do. That is the best mastermind you could be in, to work up and close and personal with somebody who built a company from the ground up that is literally about to be worth 9 figures. That is insane. Do you understand how much she gonna get tired of me asking questions? I can tell you that right now. She's gonna get tired of me asking questions because I got questions. I got so many questions. And it's not just about how the company, it's just, I need to know mental space. I need to know, what does it take up here to flip that on to get to that next step, because I know that I'm not there yet. Because if I was there, I would be there. Right. And I have to give myself grace because this path that I'm on is the path of becoming. Make no mistake about it. But I know that being in her presence allows me to be able to now understand how to move if I want to be able to get that. And I'm here for it. And I am so thankful. I am so appreciative. And so, for those of you who are out there who are CEOs or who are entrepreneurs or those who are trying to get that next level, you have to ask yourself, are you doing enough? Because I'm telling you, I look at myself, and here's the thing, I'm not talking about do busy work. What I notice about this CEO is that everything she does is intentional. Everything she does is aligned with what she's doing. And if it doesn't, then hey, and here's the thing, I'm not saying don't have a good time. I'm not saying don't enjoy life. I'm not saying all of that. But if you're going to be partying, make sure that you're networking at the same time. Okay, if you're gonna be sitting down, doggone, just not doing what you're supposed to do, if you're surfing the internet, making sure you're using it for content so that you can understand. Okay, what am I learning from these people? What can I learn to make my content better? Don't just be on there haphazardly just doing things. Everything needs to be with intention. And this is the one of the things that I'm learning. Like the calendar has to be with intentional things. Is it for mind, body, or soul? And it's just that simple. It ain't got to be work, 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 work. If I'm doing this thing right here, what is this for? This is because I am preparing my body. I'm preparing my mind. I'm preparing my soul. I'm preparing my whatever. I'm preparing the books. I'm preparing the brand. I'm preparing the company. What are you preparing for? It has to be intentional. It has to align with what it is that you're trying to do. And that's what I've learned thus far. And it hasn't even been a month that I've been working hand in hand with the CEO. But when I tell you that I cannot be more happier and excited, and every day I learn it. I mean, since I've been here, it has been my eat, sleep, and drink because I want to do better. I want to do better. I want to be the best representation that I can be for the Sassy Jones brand. That's just me. It's like I told her, I feel like I'm handling somebody's baby. Like, you know what I mean? I want to be the best representation. I want to know that I've done the best by her. And it's just that simple. And what we're doing right now is like a pilot program. It's the first time it's ever being done. And so I'm like, we're setting the ground foundation for this. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, like I am so elated and I could not be happier. And so listen, this live right here, I'm so glad that I was able to do it. I don't know what it was going on earlier where I couldn't set up in my normal spot. But what I do know is I am here now. And listen, I am so happy to be here. So I don't know who this is for, but I know this is for somebody because what I do know is that when you know you are walking in that place of becoming, it feels so like it's like things just fall into place. I mean, I can't explain it. I can't explain it. You know it. You will know it. So listen, I hope you've learned something from this. And if this is your first time here, let me know what you thought about the video. Let me know if there's something else you'd like for me to discuss. And like I said, if you're returning, whatever the case may be, but welcome to the neighborhood. This is Hood Parenting. So of course, this platform is the neighborhood. And I am your fairy godmother. And turn on your notifications and subscribe. And I will catch you guys in the next live. Bye.